But you mentioned something too about the human aspect of it too. When did you realize that this neuroscience that you were interested in was actually deeply human, and it was actually more than just another academic pursuit? It was also human understanding.
Well, I think if I go back years and years ago, so I was looking at emotion in the voice, but I hadn't started looking at laughter. And this is like the end of the 90s. My father fell very, very ill. Like he just had these catastrophic health events. Every time you got him out of hospital, something else would go wrong, and he was back in hospital. And we were back for, I think, like the third time with him mortally ill. And he was visibly fading in front of us. The doctors didn't know what to do. And like you are often in hospital, we were all just sitting around going, waiting for someone to do something. And we were all silent. And my father suddenly said, "Oh, we've laughed a lot, haven't we?" And I was like, yeah, we have, Dad, we have. And he actually, it was all right. He had another 14 happy years. So they put him on a drug that was killing him. They took him off the drug. So he had, another very happy 14 years with us. And not long after he'd actually finally passed away, many years later, and I was getting more involved in thinking about laughter, and I was coming around to this Robert Provine idea about it being this kind of, it's a social behaviour. And I thought, actually, my dad was right. At the time, I just thought, why not? Let's laugh. Now I think, no, he's absolutely right. Because if you can look back at a life full of laughter, it means you've had the chance to share this really beautiful moments of sort of joy with the people you really care about. And what else is there?
Absolutely.
Laughter is this beautiful kind of index about how you really feel about the people that you're with. And if you get to be with the people you really love and you get to laugh with them, what more could you want?
I completely agree. I think I look at my family and like how, because I think that's why I was always interested in this topic, because I grew up in a family where we all have that. There's a big community. There's like 10 members of our family, and it's always laughter, always because this uncle is making fun of this, the child is getting it, he's making fun of it. So it's like in a household there, it's like everyone is just like, laughter is always something I felt deeply connected to my person, my being, especially as I got older, and I can see it in my friendship. I can see when I meet someone, immediately I'm trying to find a way for us to connect on that field too, on that kind of like laughter. And some of my closest friends are the people that can make me laugh. I just doing nothing at all, just like how they are. I just look at them and I just start laughing and just be like, well, what's funny? And I'm like, I don't know, it's
because you love your friends. There's no funny thing. Exactly. It's them.
It's just the connection that you have. Another thing that was also really that interests me about how you teach this subject, because I've seen you do a couple of really, really good lectures and also a TED talk, which is amazing.
That was good fun.
It was really, really good. You did really, really well, guys. 100% go check it out. But yeah, one thing I found you did really well was that in your teaching about laughter, you also have a humor about with the way that you communicate. You used recordings of people, different types of laughter. There was one French woman that had a laughter that was completely unbelievable. I did not think that was actually, but it was right, wasn't it?
It is extraordinary laughter. And she says herself in French, "Mon Dieu, c'est quoi ça?" My God, what is that? Where did that come from? She makes incredible noises.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So the question was, was there a point in time that you thought actually it's good to integrate laughter in how I teach this, or was it just a natural thing that's happened?
It was actually quite deliberate. So the first time I got asked to do a public TEDx talk, it was in 2012, and is when I was kind of getting more into this journey of really connecting with what laughter really means, like this kind of social, joyful, close emotional experience you have with people. And they asked me to do it, and I thought, well, I could do it, or I could do it to make it funny. And if you make it funny, then people they can be laughing as well as thinking about laughter. But also, I must admit, I've been to very serious scientific talks on laughter, and they're very, very boring. Because people are, shut up, no, this is very serious. We've got to let people engage with their bits, And then I think it does, I mean, really the strategy was you can be learning about it, but also doing it, and maybe that helps you think about it a bit differently. Like, what did I just laugh at then?
Absolutely, and I think it's so interesting too, because like you're teaching about how that happens in human beings, and then you can see the audience kind of like they laugh themselves at the moments, and you can always have a mirror to them and be like, oh look, you're laughing too because you understood this, or because you thought this was surprising or something like that. Another point that I wanted to get into too was I think, like you mentioned before, we always think like laughter is about jokes. And I think that's what the previous study was about. But obviously you found that laughter is more of talking about how it's more of a function rather than jokes. How does that appear in the research and also in what you've learned?
So it's if you look at people laughing, so you're 30 times more likely to laugh if there's somebody else there than if you're on your own, and you'll laugh more if you know those people, and you'll laugh more if you like those people. So you've got this very sort of social behaviour. It's primed by other people being there, and then it's sort of enhanced by how close you feel to those people. And what that means in practice is most laughter lives in conversations, because that's how humans manage social interactions. We talk to each other, or we have a sign language conversation, but we have some sort of live interaction. And that's where laughter lives. And in those conversations, laughter, sometimes we are laughing because something's funny. Somebody may have told a joke, then maybe you remember something funny from the television. That definitely happens. But there's also a load of other reasons why we laugh. But sometimes we're laughing just through contagion, because we catch laughter from other people. That's still social. You're much more likely to catch a laugh from someone you know than someone you don't know. So sometimes it's just being transmitted like that. Sometimes you're laughing because of how you feel with those people. Laughter something, it's associated in other animals with play, and we do laugh when we're playing. So when you're being playful, you'll laugh with people. And that sometimes bleeds into humour, I think. But we'll also use laughter communicatively. So we'll use laughter to show that we understand what somebody said, or we recognise what somebody said, or we get the implication of what somebody said. And in fact, Robert Provine found at any one point in time, the person who laughs most in the conversation is frequently the person who's talking. So they're using the laughter to get the people they're talking to show they remember, show they understand, show they agree by joining in with the laughter. So it's a hall of mirrors. We'll also use laughter to kind of try and manage other emotional states. So people will use laughter to try to mask other emotions. So people will use, if they're starting to cry, or they're angry, or they're really sad, they'll use laughter to kind of cover that up, like a sort of masking behaviour. I was listening to a podcast a while ago, and this woman was telling a very sad story about a dog, and she started crying, and she immediately started laughing at herself. And it was it was just covering up the emotion. It was just covering up the actual crying that she was doing. And we will also use laughter to try and deal with stressful situations. And the interesting thing there is that will work if everybody laughs. So if you share laughter, like if you and your friend are talking in a difficult situation, but one of you makes a joke about something and you both start laughing, you will feel better together. If only one person laughs, that actually, if anything, it feels slightly worse. Yeah. So it's a very, very common use of laughter, is actually dealing with stress. And the hallmark there is sharing the laughter. In fact, you just keep coming back to this time and again. It's not just that laughter happens in interactions. It's that a lot of the good stuff in laughter is happening when you share the laughter, when you laugh together. There's something special about laughing together.
Okay, let's zoom in on that too, because that's what's fascinates me a lot about it too, because I've recognized that implicitly in my relationships with people, just like, okay, I share more and feel closer to you when we laugh more, or like if we have an issue and we laugh about it, we feel that kind of connection.
Yeah.
So from your research, what age do you think that starts, and how do you think we develop that as we get older?
Well, with the proviso that there's still not enough research into this, it starts really early. So human babies, from not long after they're born, they can cry and they can indicate displeasure with things, or they need things. And of course, arguably, from an evolutionary perspective, they need to be able to do that. Babies use laughter. Like I can still, in my head, imagine my son's pain cry, which fortunately I didn't hear very often, but just this ringing sound. I mean, you just got to sort this out now. You can't let this will not stand. And then that was different from his tired cry, and it was different from his hungry cry. And that's a very, very common, but there's a communicative aspect to crying from the outset. And then at around 3 months old, babies start laughing. And the interesting thing there is they don't show any contagious laughter. They don't laugh when a parent laughs, but they'll laugh at things the parent does. And there's something very truthful about babies' laughter, because they don't laugh because they like you or they're trying to make you feel better about something. They laugh because that's brilliant. What you just did with that piece of paper, or what you just did with that peekaboo game, that's just brilliant, And so that arguably is, tickling will also work. It's all social. These are all things you have to do with somebody else there. The babies don't start laughing on their own. And in fact, babies that are deaf and blind, so they've never heard or seen anybody else laughing, they will still, if a parent tickles them, they will laugh. So it's a sort of prepotent thing that can appear, but it's communicative and it's bonding right from the outset. So it seems to be important for kind of making, kind of the baby laughs. The parent is trying to make the baby laugh because that's nice. And then the parent laughs when the baby laughs. And basically that's us starting to teach the babies to laugh together. So that contagious behaviour. There's other contagious things like yawning and coughing, that and they're all learned. The laughter has this it's appearing very early, and it has this kind of playful bonding role. And everything's kind of built on that. So if you look at, again, so we don't know enough about it, but by the time babies are kind of going into toddlers, so they're getting around one, they don't have much language, but they're certainly not saying very much, but they understand a lot of what's said. You find that, these big babies, young toddlers, they will use a parent's laughter to work out if a situation is dangerous or not. So if you put them in a situation where an experimenter is doing something funny, some peculiar behaviour is going on, and if the baby will sort of clock the peculiar behaviour, and then if the mum is laughing, they'll be like, "Oh, this is funny," and if the mum's not laughing, they're like, "Oh, I'm just not so certain about this." And not long after that, they will do things to intentionally make their parents laugh. So long before we've got good use of spoken language, babies are using laughter in a pretty sophisticated way to sort of scaffold, like frame interactions. What does this situation mean? How can I make you laugh? That's pretty complex. And there must be more to do. Clearly a lot more to this, but I've been trying for years to get some funding to actually look at this. But that developmental trajectory is obviously just gets more and more complex, because at some age, children start to learn to laugh in a way that's not just like a very truthful baby laughter, like that's killing me, starting to laugh in a more kind of intentional way, which a lot of laughter is. That conversational laughter is mostly people at some level intentionally using the laughter to kind of help the interaction. That doesn't mean to say I now decide to laugh, but you're kind of, when you laugh to show agreement with something, that's not you helpless with laughter on the floor. There's an intentional element to that. And again, this is the plural of anecdote is not data, but I used to take my son to when he was younger, there's a fantastic thing called Comedy Club for Kids, where they ran a proper comedy show for children, proper comedians, and it's all clean. And I started taking him when he was like 4. And the first time I took him, I noticed he was laughing really strangely. And what he was doing was he was watching me. And he was laughing when I laughed at a joke, and then going, ha, 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 I too understand why that is funny. And then when he's about 7, I remember taking him, and he was just watching the comedian go, oh, it's funny because it's true. And he doesn't need any of that kind of social thing now. And that will attract him having a better understanding of using laughter in this more kind of complex way. That you also have to learn about the difference between people sharing laughter with you and laughing at you. That's that, again, my son went through a stage where, everyone will have done, when we were at some party and a load of boys were laughing at him he went to a different school from him and he didn't know them. And they were laughing at him because he was, look how he does this. He's a stranger. And he was laughing along because he thought they were laughing with him. We had to leave the party. I thought my partner was going to hit somebody. It was very stressful. And then within 4 months, he completely flipped. And we were watching he got really into The Simpsons. And do you remember the start of The Simpsons movie? There's a whole bit where Bart does his roller skate, his skateboard thing, but he's completely in the nude. And it's very funny. And we were watching it laughing, and my son was furious and saying, stop laughing at Bart, stop it. I mean, no, we're not laughing at him. It's just so he'd gone completely the other way. Now I know you can be laughed at, and I'm looking for it everywhere. And you have to learn that. And then you start learning, okay, so that, and as far as I can see, throughout your entire early adult life, this is something you're still learning about. I mean, again, adolescence, when your social world is now no longer you and your family, it's you and your friends. And that's where your laughter goes, and where the things that you laugh at together start. My son now is a teenager, like, oh, Mum, you don't understand, this. And it's true, it's because it's not for me, it's for teens, it's for his group. He's showing his social allegiances by how he laughs and who he's laughing with. So, we're all on that sort of journey. But it also, then it stays pretty complex, I think. And by the time you're an adult, it's a very nuanced behaviour, laughter. It's a very complex social behaviour.
I think that's the perfect way to describe it. It's like, because you are right, like when we start as children, it's a very simple kind of reaction to what we see
Yeah.
and like how we communicate with our caregivers, right?
True joy.
True, like
Yeah.
just like from an internal. But then as you get older, know that there's complexity with it.
Yeah.
You see how other people can use it against you. You see how other people can like bring it out of you through actions. And you know, comedians are like the best example of that.
Yeah.
How they would like kind of like work a whole joke to just elicit that laughter from you. I think one thing I've always been fascinated about too is how we use laughter to kind of navigate those social bonds. You mentioned your son when he's first of interacting with people. Understanding laughter is a very important part to like making friends and understanding. So talk to me a little bit more about that. What role does that play in there?